Hello fear seekers, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be diving into some disturbing, allegedly true, paranormal encounter horror stories. Now, it is a dream of mine to read subscriber horror stories someday. With that in mind, I'd ask that you subscribe to the channel and like the video so we can make that happen together. If you have any scary stories from your own life, consider sharing them on the official Fermented Fears subreddit, link in the description. Now without further ado, sit back, ignore the sound of unseen footsteps down the hall, and get ready to ferment your fears. I was on an assignment for the Army, making my way up from San Antonio, Texas to Tacoma, Washington. It was a long drive, and they gave me 6 days to report to my new unit, but I didn't mind. I love road trips. There's nothing like the freedom of exploring the world by yourself. The first day of my journey, I planned to get as much driving in as possible so I could spend a few days in Utah, a sort of mini vacation you could say. This was January and the days were short, so maximizing the amount of daylight I had was crucial. I got up extra early that morning, carried the last of my bags out to my Corolla, signed out of my old unit, and hit the road at roughly 5 a.m. It was an amazing day. I saw the landscape transform around me as I headed further west than I had ever been in my life. From the San Antonio metropolitan area, to the savannas of the Edwards Plateau, to the pancake flat farmland of the Great Plains region, America's breadbasket. Finally, the farms opened up into prairie and I saw the "Welcome to New Mexico, the Land of Enchantment" sign. Now I was really in the middle of nowhere. Continuing on US Route 380, I eventually found myself in Roswell. I could have gotten a few more hours of driving in and made it to Albuquerque, but I figured since I was in no rush, I might as well see what Roswell had to offer. Who knows if I would get a chance to visit again. As a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious, I took a self-guided tour of the shops and attractions. The next day I continued to Albuquerque, then westward on Interstate 40. By the time I reached Gallup and started northbound on US Route 491, I still had 2 hours of driving left before crossing the border into Colorado, and another 45 minutes before I would get to Cortez, my planned stop for the night. However, my daylight was already running out, as sunset was at 6 p.m. I got Starbucks and refreshed myself for the final stretch. It was supposed to be easy, just a straight shot. But looking back on it now, I figured that, had I decided to stop in Albuquerque instead of Roswell the night previous, I would have already been in Colorado by now, and possibly be making my way into Utah. I would have saved myself from what was waiting for me on that desolate highway. Route 491 stretched far into the Navajo Nation. On either side of me were endless expanses of prairie, bookended by dark indigo mountains on the horizon. To my left, the sky glowed a faint orange-purple, the light slowly dying down like smoldering embers in a fire, until finally plunging the land into darkness. Every now and then, I would see the forlorn headlights of another car passing by, which gave me a bit of relief that I wasn't alone. I also had my road trip playlist on to keep me company, and call me ironic, but Hotel California was playing. After passing the small, lonely town of Newcomb, the next piece of civilization would be Shiprock. However, between the two was a 36-mile stretch of absolute nothingness, an abyss I had to cross. I was not ready for what I was about to witness. After several miles, and having not seen another car on the road, I saw something strange emerge from the horizon. Barely lit by the moonlight, I thought it was a road sign at first. Then, as I came closer, I realized it was a person, walking on the shoulder of the road, heading in my direction. I squinted, trying my hardest to focus on the figure. In the darkness, I could tell they were wearing a poncho of some sort, with long black hair flowing down past their chest. Who could be walking out here all alone at night? I thought. Whoever it was, they had no lights, no reflectors, no strobes of any kind to signal to passing cars that they were there, and they walked on the pavement, dangerously close to oncoming traffic. I pulled to the left a bit, giving them a wide berth. Suddenly, my stereo cut out as if I had turned it off. The screen went completely dark and my phone disconnected from Bluetooth. While this was unusual, it certainly did happen from time to time, so I thought nothing of it. As I approached, I saw the person raise their right arm as if to flag me down and hitch a ride. Oh, no, I thought. There's no way that's happening, buddy. As my headlights swept by, I realized it was a man dressed in a button-up shirt, a wool poncho, jeans, and cowboy boots. His large belt buckle glinted as the lights passed him. But in that split second, I realized with abject shock that not only were his eyes painfully wide open, but they seemed to be tracking me. Somehow, he was able to see me through the glare of my headlights and look me dead in the eyes, not breaking contact until I passed. I was shaken for a bit, but my nerves gradually subsided. My stereo abruptly turned back on and my music continued playing. I brushed everything off as simply my imagination. The darkness and the shadows playing tricks on my mind. Besides, the man was behind me. I figured he must have been drunk. Indian reservations sadly had high rates of alcoholism. I looked in my rearview mirror. He was gone. I couldn't see him. Maybe he's too far behind me? No, that couldn't be. It must be too dark. Maybe. I drove on, trying to figure out what had just happened, but at the same time, forcing myself not to think about it. Just when I thought I had moved on, I saw another shape in the distance. Getting closer, I realized it was another figure. Another person walking alone at night? There's no way. They walked along the shoulder of the road, swaying back and forth. Slowly, I could make out that this person was also wearing a poncho. Then I saw what looked like long black hair reaching down past the chest. No, there's no way. It was the man. The same man. But how? The man raised his arm again, trying to flag me down. What did this guy want? I kept up my pace with no intention of stopping for any reason. Just like last time, my stereo turned off again. Suddenly, the man leapt out onto the road, arms waving frantically. I swerved into the left lane, narrowly avoiding him. In my headlights, I noticed he had the same wide-eyed look, his gaze locked onto mine. I also saw that his clothes did not look as they did the first encounter. Once they were clean, if not well worn, but now they were soiled and tattered, rags barely hanging on to his withered frame. His hair was wild and unkempt, with clods of dried dirt stuck in the locks, but his eyes remained the same. My heart nearly burst through my chest at the sudden shock. Hyperventilating, I slowed down and glanced into the rearview mirror to make sure he was all right. Nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to see. The man was running. He was sprinting towards me. I centered the wheel and accelerated, hoping to get as much distance from him as possible. But as I continued to speed up, so did he. Faster and faster I drove, but every time I looked in the mirror, I would still see him right behind me, perfectly keeping pace, his body tinted red by my taillights. I could feel my temples throbbing and my hands getting slick with sweat on the steering wheel. I was sick to my stomach. There's no way. I looked forward, hoping to see a faint glimmer of light from the town ahead, but I was still too far away. I looked back at the rearview mirror. The man was gone. I should have been relieved, but I knew better. Where did he go? I looked around, hoping to regain a visual on him. I couldn't see anything. Taking a deep breath, I refocused on the road, but kept my guard up. Just keep driving, I told myself. Only a few more miles to go. Out of the corner of my right eye, I saw something. Another shape. It wasn't the man. At least, I didn't think so. I glanced over, bracing myself for whatever was going to meet my sight. It looked like an animal. Some kind of animal, though I couldn't make out exactly what it was. Under the moonlight, I could see it running alongside my car, its forelimbs reaching out in long strides, its back undulating like a dog. Closer and closer it came. The closer it was, the more of it I could see, little by little. Then I noticed its limbs were far too long for its body. Its body was too short. It had no tail. The head was oddly round, and from it came a trail of long, black hair. I slammed my foot on the gas, pushing my car's engine harder than it had ever been pushed before. By now I was clocking well over 110 miles per hour. But this creature, it kept up. It wasn't phased. It simply ran faster and faster to match my speed. Just what was this thing? How could anyone or anything run this fast? The entity seemed to have endless stamina. Just how long could it keep this up? Just how much faster could it go? Soon, my car would hit its top speed. And then what? How long could it maintain that before breaking down? It wouldn't be long until my engine overheats. But regardless, I would eventually run out of gas. And when I did, what would happen if that thing got me? At 120 miles per hour, my car had reached its limit. This was the fastest I could go. But the creature continued its pursuit. My temperature gauge was approaching the red, and so was my tachometer. I couldn't keep this up any longer. Suddenly, like the beacon of a lighthouse on a tumultuous sea, the first light of shiprock came into view. It was close. So close. If I could just go a little longer, I could make it into town. To safety. I pressed on. I fixed my eyes on the lights growing brighter on the horizon. They bloomed outwards, glimmering in the night air. Though it was a small town, it was a sight for sore eyes in my situation. Looking in my periphery, I saw the undulation of the creature's spine as it kept pace with my car. But now, it was slipping away, steering further and further down the road. It suddenly hit me just how hard my heart was beating. Beads of sweat dripped down my face. I looked over. The creature was gone. But this time, the feeling of dread had also gone with it. My stereo once again turned back on, and as my music resumed, I breathed a deep sigh of relief. I let off the accelerator. The man, the creature, whatever it was finally gone for good. Having white-knuckled the steering wheel the whole time without realizing it, my hands were extremely sore, but I was glad to have made it through. A week later, I told another soldier in my unit about what I had experienced. Being originally from Albuquerque, she was familiar with the Native American legends of the Southwest. The conversation steered toward a certain creature that she would not dare speak the name of. She also told me that the highway I took was well known for all sorts of paranormal phenomena. Google what Route 491 used to be called, and everything will make sense. Be careful out there. A long time ago, when I was a child of about 11 living on a rural farm, I had a friend, a boy my age, and he was my neighbor's grandson. She was a lovely woman who lived down the road. Her property connected to ours, and the end of her driveway was the local school bus stop. I used to visit before school for a cookie and a cordial and a chat. Sometimes her grandson would visit, and we would get up to mischief with a quad bike, and there was also a go-kart that sat in the garden, and sometimes we would climb the hay barn and sit at the top. But it was the quad we had the most fun with. Probably the most dangerous was a game where we would try and push each other off of the quad while we were driving, taking turns trying to knock each other off and then racing away while the one pushed off chased after to catch up, then started it all over again. This was very dangerous and kinda stupid. I realize that now, but as a kid I was invincible and naive, but this was normal with us. Once, we even climbed the giant hill behind my house and raced each other rolling down it. That time there was a girl with us too, Melissa. I never saw her again after that, but I digress. This story is about Justin. He was kinda cute with his blonde hair and blue eyes, but I was at that stage where boys are gross and sometimes he would tease me and make me upset. Now so far everything sounds normal, right? Well, this is where things get weird. One day, we were hanging out on the upper level of the hay barn and he was talking about jumping off onto the dirt road below. He tried to dare me to jump and I got scared and refused to do it. It was a long way down and I did not want to get hurt. I had been practicing jumping off the shed roof at home, as this wasn't the first time he talked about it. But that roof was only a quarter the height and I would land on grass and still hurt myself a bit. Anyway, he started teasing me and calling me names like chicken and making chicken noises. I got really upset and started to cry. He said, "Don't be such a wuss, I did it and I'm fine." I called him an idiot and as I climbed down I told him I wasn't playing with him anymore and I ran home. The next day, I went back to his grandmother's to see if he would play with me, but I couldn't find him anywhere, so I knocked on her kitchen door and asked if she had seen him around. The look on her face wasn't one I'd expected. It was a look of shock and sadness, and she asked how I knew him. Where did I get the name from? I just looked at her confused and said, "He's your grandson." She gasped and invited me in, and once I was inside, she handed me a framed photo and asked me if I recognized the boy. I said of course I did. It was Justin. I was really confused by this point, and so she sat me down at the table and told me the story of how her grandson had died in a terrible accident years before we had even moved to the area. Justin had slipped and fell off the second level of the hay barn and had died instantly, snapping his neck. At first I didn't believe her, as I was sure she had seen us around the farm. She said no, she had seen me running around and quite enjoyed me being there, as it made her remember the fond memories she had of kids running around, and since his death there just weren't any kids around. It was at this point I realized that Justin always called out to me when I was walking up the path to visit her, and then I would run off and play with him. We sat and talked for a while as she wanted to know everything about what we did. When I told her about the quad bike, she laughed and said he always loved that thing, but it had sat in the shed since the accident and would not run anymore. I also told her about rolling down the hill, but she had no idea who Melissa was. Anyway, it was getting late and I had to go home. As I left, I noticed the go-kart in the garden. It was not shiny red as I had remembered it, but a rusted, faded orange with wheels half stuck in the ground as if it had stopped working years ago. I asked her if that was his, and she said yes. She said that she couldn't bear to get rid of it, so she had made it a permanent part of the garden. I never saw Justin after that, but I was keeping a diary of sorts hidden under a bridge in a waterproof container with a pen. Every now and again I would discover writing that wasn't mine, until I had to move out in a hurry and couldn't take it with me. Years later, I was going through my phase file and I saw Justin's name along with Melissa's, and my social worker had written that I had a wonderful imagination, and that due to my loneliness and isolation I had invented them as my imaginary friends, as no children lived anywhere near me. I know they weren't imaginary, as I remember them so vividly. And in the case of Justin, I wasn't the only one who remembered him. Also, how could I play such a dangerous game on the quad by myself? That thing had a cutoff switch that would stop it the moment the driver got off. So how could I chase it unless Justin was driving, and also how did I know how to drive it? As she stated, it didn't run, and she is also a smart and caring woman. She would not have let me do something so dangerous. So where did I go where she couldn't have seen me as we were driving around the front paddock only a few meters from her house? So many questions left unanswered. But I do know this. I miss my crazy friend. I need help if possible. Anyone who understands or knows how to deal with supernatural stuff or demons. I'm not crazy. I am not lying. I am very afraid. Okay, so this all started years ago. Pretty sure it was in 2018. I had taken an old notebook that was gifted to me from a friend and wrote Japanese symbols for demon and possession and other like things on the cover and inside of the book. I did not think anything of it then. It was just me trying to make something cool looking. I had written some other very odd things inside. On the cover of it in big red writing, I had written 86. I do not know why I wrote this. It was the first thing to come to mind. As time went on, I wrote in the book with red and black pen. I would pretend I was talking to someone through the red pen. I would write in black, and then the first thing that came to mind, I would write it in red. I felt as if it was more of a way to vent, to be honest. I don't think I was in a good spot because the red writing was becoming aggressive and putting me down, but at the same time it would try lifting me up and saying things to make me feel better. It felt like I was just talking to myself. No big deal. Then things started happening. I do not have a good relationship with my father. We fight a lot and he abuses my family and drinks excessively. He was almost removed from our home twice now. I felt like I was venting in the notebook, and me being a young and angered child, the red pen was telling me to hurt him, or worse, end his life and do something about my own. A few times, the red pen would tell me to let it just take over and that it would be okay if I let it. Just put the notebook under your pillow and I would have good dreams. At the time, I had thought this was my inner consciousness talking. Keep in mind that I was writing this all to myself, so I thought I was just maybe subconsciously going with the theme of the notebook. I had agreed to let it take over a few times, and honestly the days that I did, they went smoothly and nothing bad happened. Nothing happened except the fact that I would have a good day. Then the red writing started saying that if I did things, then I would get certain good outcomes. It had told me to write a symbol for bad luck on the bottom of my bare foot, and that it would affect all those who had done me wrong wherever I had walked. It had told me to carve a symbol in a birch tree in the back of our woods behind our house so that it could do things to help me better. It told me to do other things, and I did them all. Mainly the things I wanted to happen would be bad things about my father. For example, after I carved the symbol in the tree, it told me to wait and it would work. The next day, my father had a heart attack outside next to the house and fell in the snow. He was laying in the cold on the ground for a while and almost died. I had asked the red pen if it caused this. It just told me to continue listening to it and everything would be okay. As time went on, other occurrences happened, and each time I would open the notebook, I would just get a more uneasy feeling, like this was a bad idea. Sometimes I would avoid it and not talk to it for a long time. Then when I went back to talk to it, it felt like it was upset that I had possibly forgotten about it. Or it would say that it was going to be there for me. It felt like an addiction, talking to the notebook with the red and black pen. Then one day I just stopped. I was very unsettled by it. Out of nowhere, I had begun getting sleep paralysis. This had never happened to me before, so it was a very scary experience because I had heard about it maybe a few times before all this. I sleep on a bunk bed, and every time I got the sleep paralysis, it would feel like something was watching me, right at the end of my bed, or next to me. Later on, it got more intense, and it felt like I was sinking into my pillow. I could scream and move, but it would be very slow and silent. It felt like these lucid dream things would go on for at least 15 minutes each time, every other night or so. I had not opened the book to write anything since those had started. I told my sister about it after some time. It had gotten to the point where I was having trouble getting to sleep, so I needed to tell someone. She probably thought I was crazy, but was open to the idea and tried comforting me or helping me in any way she could. She has seen the notebook, and I have shown her some of the things from it. We had come to the resolution that it was just normal sleep paralysis or something. More time went on and the experiences began to get more severe. I could feel the presence close to me and touching me while I slept. Sometimes it would be at the end of my bed or on top of me. Other times it would be in the corner of my room next to my brother's bed. I share a bedroom with my 2 younger siblings. Bad things started happening around the house. Months later, close to a year, I finally had enough and thought about destroying the book. It was sitting in a shoebox and I refused to open it or write in it. Then I burned the book. I threw it into our fireplace and watched it burn. My sister was there for it. I thought it would be okay and that maybe this would stop things. I was wrong. Shortly after that, the paralysis got extreme. I woke up one night abruptly with my head shaking back and forth vigorously. Not just, I woke up from a nightmare type movie stuff. I mean that it was abnormally and aggressively shaking. I had other times where I was in that lucid dream state and something was pulling me off my bed by one of my limbs. One other time I was able to look off my bed and the room elongated. It was dark and there were gray sheets covering the floor. All the way at the end of the elongated abyss, there was something moving under the sheet in a small lump. I fully woke up before I could remove the sheet. Then, many times after that, which is what really started scaring me, I began to feel like I was being assaulted. I am a female, something was holding me down, etc. Each time I would try screaming or waking up, it felt like the lucid dream state would start over. And each time it restarted, it was more aggressive. I am not making this up. I was around 13 when it happened. I have already thought of the possibility that it could have been someone in the house, but that certainly wasn't the case. This happened multiple times. I asked my sister one night it happened if anyone had been in the room, since she was up reading a book, and since I sleep on the top bunk, she sleeps below me. She said no. Things only got worse from there, and I felt like something was always watching me. My sister had begun getting sleep paralysis as well. However, she was not as disturbed by it as I was. She didn't experience it at its full intensity as I did, and she thought it was more so interesting than it was frightening. We came to the conclusion it was some sleep paralysis demon thing and just named the situation and the thing 86. I had told my mother about this and she didn't believe me or my sister, but to make us feel better she put salt on all the windowsills. I do not know if that helped or what it was supposed to do, to be honest. Fast forward to the present, I still get sleep paralysis. However, the feeling of assaults have stopped and I don't feel anything pulling me off my bed anymore. I just feel something either on top of me or beside me. Last night my father threw my video camera at me and missed. He hit the mirror and glass shattered all on my bed. My bed has since moved from its previous spot years ago when the stuff happened. I'm still in a bunk bed, but I now sleep right where it felt like the thing was pulling me in the corner of the room. I didn't feel like cleaning up the glass last night, so I slept on the couch. I got multiple small sleep paralysis moments when I was trying to sleep. The couch is right by the bedroom door, and during a paralysis moment I heard growling from inside the bedroom. It sounded like it was coming from the corner of my little brother's bed. Then I heard footsteps approaching behind me because I had my back faced to the living room, and I was facing the bedroom. Before I could freak out any further, I fully woke up, and nothing was on the bed besides my brother, and no one was behind me. I thought that maybe it was our dog growling, but all three of them were locked in my parents' bedroom sleeping with them. They couldn't have gotten out either, since there's a gate in the kitchen doorway that they would also have to get by. At exactly 4:20 a.m., I was awoken by my sister coming out of the bedroom crying. I was confused and didn't know what she was saying, so I had to ask her to repeat herself multiple times. She asked me how to make it stop. I later found out in the conversation that she was talking about the paralysis. Now, me and my sister haven't been on good terms these past few years. She literally hates me and doesn't talk to me anymore and insults me now. So this threw me off a lot. She told me that the paralysis stuff has been happening to her for a while now, and it's finally starting to get to her. She had apparently just woken up from one, and that's why she was crying. My sister is not one to lie about any of this. She is very practical and doesn't even believe in demons and ghost nonsense. But whatever this is, it's scaring her. She told me it had been speaking to her. That alone scared me a lot because mine never spoke to me. She said it is always by the corner where I felt like something was pulling me off my bed years ago, or in the corner right by my little brother's bed. I have shared experiences with 86 being in those areas. I asked her what it was saying to her, and she said it always is asking her questions. What is your name? How old are you? Etc. I immediately told her not to answer it. I don't know anything about this stuff, but I know answering questions it asks you is not good to do. I asked her what it sounded like, and she said it sounded like an older man with a semi-raspy voice trying to make the voice higher pitched. With the way she described it, she confirmed it sounded like it was speaking with a small child or to a dog. She told me she felt like she answers its questions, not on purpose, but still does, because it feels like a lucid dream and not reality. It asked her her age or name or something like that again tonight, and she answered it. The thing replied with, 4 pretty words. I asked her what that even meant, and she started crying and freaking out a little more and said she didn't know. She said that she heard someone walk into the room before it happened. And now thinking about it, I did hear footsteps last night when I heard the growling that sounded like it was coming up to the bedroom. The more she talked about it, the more scared and concerned I got. She has seen this thing before apparently. She said it looked grayish and I think adult-sized. It was sitting beside her on her bed before. The only thing was that she couldn't see its face. She could only see from the nose/chin area down. This also freaked me out because when I experienced the sleep paralysis, I was never able to see it. That was always the big thing. I never saw it. We don't know what to do. We are children, and I am not even a legal adult yet. My little brother thinks we are being silly because he overhears us talking about it, and I know my parents would never believe us. I am very scared that whatever this is talking to my younger sister. No one is going to believe us, even if I told them. That's why I made this account here, hoping to find someone who can help us. I just found this all out about the stuff happening to my sister this morning. I know very little about this kind of stuff. She is losing sleep, and I don't know how to help her. We don't have any mental issues or problems, we don't do drugs, we don't know how to explain this. I told her maybe we could burn sage or something because I saw it a few times in the movies, but I really don't know what to do, and we need serious help. I'm scared something is going to happen. We determined that the thing that is trying to talk to her is something different from 86. She admitted that it has never tried really hurting her, and that mine was a lot more malicious. I'm scared. Hi guys, glad to see you made it to the end of the video. Have you ever had a paranormal encounter? Make sure to let me know in the comments below. If you or someone you know have a scary story you'd like to hear narrated, be sure to send it in. If you don't have a story but are a fan of the channel or my narrations, feel free to make a video request and I'll do my best to put that out for you. Alright guys, that just about wraps up the video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So long, Fear Seekers. I'll see you in the next video.